About 8 days after he said this, he took Peter, John, and James and went up the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance, and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my chosen Son. Listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell asleep and did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen. Luke 9:28. Hello everyone, and welcome to my 7th Bible analysis video. Today we're going to talk about the transfiguration of Jesus. But before we get into that, I just wanted to plug my sponsor, Holy Time, which is an app, a prayer app that's helpful in creating prayers, in looking up Bible verses. It provides daily devotions. It helps me prepare for these shows. And they have been nice enough to sponsor this channel. And because of that, my viewers, if you're interested, you can download the app, Holy Time, and get a 50% basically discount on the cost of it. It's normally $9.95, and you can download it for $4.99. So if it's something that interests you, by all means, check it out. That's Holy Time. It's only available on the App Store for Apple right now, but they're looking and working to get it at Android. So check it out, see if it's for you. Now, the passage I just read you is called the Transfiguration of Jesus. Now, what does that mean? The term itself means to change appearance in this case, to change how he looked. And we see that in the actual passage. But as we hear, it's a lot more than just his appearance changing. And we're going to get into that. And I'm going to tell you my thoughts on the various meanings behind this passage. And I think there's multiple meanings. And I think it's a great passage to really delve into and think about. So the passage starts with Jesus taking Peter, John, and James with him into the mountains to pray. Now, this isn't unusual. We've seen throughout the gospel how Jesus at various spots or times in his life had dedicated time to be alone with God. That was a major part, his meditation and his prayer with his Father in heaven. So this is not anything unusual from Peter, James, or John's perspective. They're just happy that he asked them to go along with him. A lot of times we've hear of him doing it totally by himself. So now he takes these 3 trusted apostles with him. And it's during this alone time, in this prayer time, this meditation time, where he's connecting with his Father in heaven, an unusual, very unusual thing happens. He's visited by Moses and Elijah. So why do you think this happened? What's important about this? Well, the first thought I had, and it's a thought that many biblical scholars say about this passage, and I agree with it, is that this is an important event because it connects Jesus directly to the Old Testament. Because as he says, he's here to fulfill the Old Testament, the old scriptures, the prophecy. He's here to fulfill that. And this connects him directly back to the 2 prophets that came before him, Elijah and Moses. And what else does this mean, though? I think it means more than just the connection to the Old Testament. I think that this is, again, a time where our Lord in heaven is preparing him, preparing the earthly, the manly side of Jesus for the passion that he needs to go through. And Moses and Elijah are there to help him because they're discussing basically his exodus. And what they mean by that is the passion, what he ultimately has to go through. Now, at this point, he had already told his disciples that he was going to have to go through this. So it wasn't a big surprise to them. But again, this is the manly side of Jesus, the mortal side of Jesus that he needs. He needs this preparation. He can't just go into this. He has doubts. The mortal side of him has doubts. So I think, in my opinion, this is God's way of helping prepare him for this task. And I also think that Elijah and Moses and who they are very important here because they both represent something different. Now, first of all, I think Elijah represents that the fulfillment of the belief that he would come, and this was a belief in the Jewish faith at the time, that Elijah would return before the actual Messiah. So basically, he's returning here. He's come and he's visited Jesus. So it's kind of fulfilling that part of the scripture that Elijah returns to visit with Jesus, and that clears the way for people to understand that Jesus is the Messiah. Also, he was not ever. The scriptures tell us that Elijah never actually died as a mortal, that he just went straight into heaven. So it's a foretelling of what Jesus is ultimately going to do after his death. He's going to rise from the dead and then ascend into heaven on his own. So I think it's a foretelling of that too. That's the importance of Elijah. Those two particular, him being there is fulfillment of the scriptures, and it's also a foretelling of what he went through and what Jesus is going to go through. Now, Moses, on the other hand, was a mortal who died. He died. The scriptures tell us that he died. So how is that important? How is he important to this passage? Well, before he dies, obviously, he delivers the Jewish people from slavery, from bondage. So what Jesus is going to do in the near future is deliver everyone from sin. So again, there is a connection to the past and a foretelling here of, what Jesus is doing or is going to do is kind of a combination of what Elijah and Moses did. So it's the complete fulfillment of God's ultimate law and preachings. So those are my thoughts on those particular historical figures and why they're there and why Jesus meets with them. So let's talk about the disciples for a second. Our flawed disciples, like I always say, our flawed disciples, our apostles are flawed men like us, everyday people. There's nothing special about them other than that they have been called to follow Christ. That's it. They're wrought with failure. So again, they're sleeping, right? They're not paying attention. They fall asleep. And when they wake up, they see what's going on. Now, this can be a tremendous shock, you would think, right? A tremendous shock to see what's going on before your eyes like this. Two prophets are visiting with your master right before your eyes. And I think what Peter says is telling here too. Peter says to Jesus, we're going to build you tents for all three of you. So basically what they're seeing, not only are they seeing the prophets have returned, they're seeing them as actual beings there, actual living, breathing beings, not spirits. They're seeing them as actual beings because they're going to build shelters for them. So I think that's powerful. It shows how they actually came down onto earth to meet with Jesus. It wasn't just a vision. It was a physical manifestation of them on earth to meet with Jesus. And then as he's saying this, what happens? A cloud comes, foreshadows them, shadows them in, and for the first time, the apostles hear the voice of God. They hear the voice of God directly telling them Jesus is my son, and follow him. And this is a major, major powerful thing, because not only are they just being told by their master that they met on earth in hands, in concrete, in flesh. They met him, they would hug him, they'd shake his hand, they'd spend time with him. They're hearing this direction, not from him. They're hearing it from the God up above, the Holy Father. They're hearing this directly from the Holy Father. So it's basically expanding things now in their eyes. Not only do they believe in Jesus and see in him and follow him, but they're also hearing from the Creator. So it's a powerful, very, very powerful moment for these disciples. And then the final part of this is that they say they're not going to speak of it. They don't speak of it. And I thought about this for a while. Why is that? Why are they not going to speak of this? And my thought is that they're focused on Jesus. Jesus is here. They see Jesus as the Messiah and the prophet. So he is espousing the word, and he's performing miracles, and he's gathering a flock, and he's about to go through this horrible passion for everyone. So I think the reason they don't speak of this is because they don't want to take away from that. They want everything to be focused on their master. They want, while he's here, he's the leader. He's going to do everything. Now, after he's gone, then this goes into the scriptures, right? Because it's something that they saw and experienced, but they don't do it while Jesus is here. At this time, they're not really proselytizing much, right? They're following Jesus. They're learning from him. They're doing things directly as he says. They're not out creating their own ministries, and they're not out creating the church yet. That really happens after he ascends into heaven. So I think it's just, as mortals, they were in awe of what went on. And again, they were so loyal and devoted to Jesus and what he was doing that they're going to let him do the preaching. They're going to let his actions speak for everything, and his words speak for everything. And then after he's gone, they're going to write this out and document what this tremendous experience they had, where they actually heard the word of the voice of our God in heaven. And my final thought about this is back to the original passage heading, the Transfiguration, where it says that he changed his appearance. Now, what does that mean? Does he look like a different person? Is he unrecognizable? No, I don't think it means that at all. What I think it means is that he becomes more godly. Like the godly presence of him is more telling. It's after this experience, it says that his robes are shiny. It's his face glowing. That's what I think it really means. It means that there's more of the God our Father in him. That's readily visual, that you can see it. You could see the difference as he's preparing for this passion. It changes him. And this experience radiates the power of God. So that's my thought on that. So there you have my humble thoughts on what this passage meant to me and what I think it's telling us. And as always, I'd love to hear your take and your interpretation. So please feel free to leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll read every one of them and respond to them. So with that, I'm going to say once again, thank you so much for watching me on this second Sunday of Lent. And as always, I will say, God bless, and I'll see you next time.